You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension, a dimension of truth, a dimension of freedom, a dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the Capitalist Corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
Welcome to the Capitalist Corner. Indeed, I am your host, Michael Liebowitz, joined today by the wonderful Persephone because Mark Pellegrino is, I really don't know where he is, but I'm going to send him this episode right now, and hopefully he shares it very rapidly. Remember, please, we enjoy all the super chats and super stickers, so please send them if you can. I notified him anyway. So we got a good show today, abundance of topics, not just Fetterman is no capitalist, but that is going to be one of the topics we'll be covering. I've got a great episode of The Rational Egoist out right now with Mr. James Stevens Valiant, wherein we discuss the virtue of justice and its role in self-improvement. And before we get started today, I'll just turn it over to Sephi as she's... what's the word I'm looking for here? Endearingly known, and she can tell us what else we got going on.
Please don't forget to go and follow us on Twitch. Also, please go and find all of the podcasts on Spotify. Everyday Ethics, when you search for it, is the one with a beige background. And also, when you listen to the podcast, leave a rating because it helps with discoverability, etc., etc. Also, please check out the channel memberships because that's a great way to support the channel, and there's good extra content. Members only shorts, members only videos, members only live streams. The first one, which will be happening on the 31st of May. So become a channel member because it's really cool.
And did you
Also,
tell them about Saturday?
Well, on Saturday, there's going to be an extra discussion with the amazing Megan Ribbons, where they'll be discussing education. Time to be confirmed?
No, it's 12 noon. It's been confirmed.
Did she confirm?
With me, right here on the show.
Time confirmed. 12 o'clock.
12 o'clock Eastern time, folks. Whatever. So... And Jenna Kleem, thank you for the $2. She wants to know what Twitch is, Persephone. So if you'd be kind enough to explain it, because I have no idea what that is. See, Megan says confirmed.
Twitch is, thank you, Megan. Twitch is a live streaming platform. So whereas YouTube is like live streaming and videos, Twitch is just for live streaming.
All right. So I've had an eventful morning.
Yeah, you started texting me before I woke up, which is crazy considering you're like 6 hours ahead of me.
So what happened? I woke up at 12:40 a.m. and after about 20 minutes of trying, I realized there was no sleeping, and as there was no rest for the wicked, I decided to get up and get some work done. So I worked until about 4, and then I went back to sleep for a couple hours. But in the meantime, I was thinking about the one topic that we did not get to yesterday, which is the assaults on the freedom of the press. And so I did kind of a deep dive into the history of free speech, the history of the freedom of the press. And this has been an enduring struggle, not endearing. It's not endearing at all. I was thinking about Persephone for quite some time. I mean, it's never, the advocates of old were not great, but they were, better than what was around then. I mean, in ancient Athens, there was advocacy for it. Once we get to John Milton, we get the Areopagitica that he wrote, wherein he advocated for the freedom of speech. Locke, with his individual rights, was he wasn't advocating specifically for free speech, but he advocated for religious tolerance. And then, of course, we had the great James Madison in this country, who was a wonderful, wonderful advocate. Also, I made a mistake and I skipped over Benedict Spinoza was another one. Voltaire, of course, advocated for free speech. And, Frederick Douglass. There's a couple great quotes, and after Frederick Douglass, John Stuart Mill, and Frederick Douglass. Let me just find a quote here, because he really was good. He said, "Talk for a second, Persephone, while I do this."
If anybody's interested, the mountain of articles that Michael referenced for today's article are available on the website at www.thecapitalistcorner.org and on the posts tab of the YouTube channel. So if you want to go read...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That was the end of that. If you want to go read all of them, they are available.
I highly recommend it, folks. If people would look, I'm telling you the truth. If people would just read the stuff that's included in our daily reading list, you will be far and away more informed than most people, and you will be given a good philosophical backdrop for most of the issues that we discuss. So I highly recommend it. History, current events, everything is included. So in a speech he gave in Boston, Frederick Douglass, the escaped slave, said, "No right was deemed by the fathers of the government more sacred than the right of speech. It was in their eyes, as in the eyes of all thoughtful men, the great moral renovator of society and government. Daniel Webster called it a homebred right, a fireside privilege. Liberty is meaningless where the right to utter one's thoughts and opinions has ceased to exist. That of all rights is the dread of tyrants. It is the right which they first of all strike down. They know its power." Yes, indeed, folks, they know its power. And they come for it, and they come again and again and again. John Stuart Mill, let's see if we can get a good banger from Mr. Mill here. I believe we will have one. Government silencing of speech is as noxious or more noxious when exerted in accordance with public opinion than when in opposition to it. If all mankind minus one were of one opinion and only one person were of contrary opinion, mankind would be no more justified in silencing that one person than he, if he had the power, would be justified in silencing mankind. There's different arguments for freedom of speech. There's the natural rights, the individual rights approach. There's the argument in that, the more information we have, the more free people are allowed to speak, the more likely we are to get at truth. And I think there's truth to both of those. I prefer the individual rights position, but ultimately the moral and the practical cannot be severed. So what is in our interest and what our rights are ultimately promote the best results for everybody. And you look now also at, the freedom of the press, for instance, and we look at Ben Franklin was a big proponent of freedom of press, though. I mean, he was skeptical. He knew that the press could be dangerous. Thomas Jefferson has one of the best quotes of, all time. He says, "The basis of our governments being the opinion of the people, the very first object should be to keep that right. And were it left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter." That's the great Thomas Jefferson, folks. So I asked, what is this? What's the Google? Gemini, to sketch me a brief history of the U.S. government violating the freedom of speech of the American people. So we have the Alien and Sedition Acts of 1798, the Civil War. There was censorship, habeas corpus. President Abraham Lincoln authorized the military to seize telegraph lines and close newspapers that criticized the administration, such as the Chicago Times. In the World War I era, we had the Espionage and Sedition Act. This act suppressed dissent against American involvement in World War I. Violation, the Espionage Act of 1917 and Sedition Act of 1918 prohibited quote-unquote disloyal speech about the government, flag, or the military. 1,000 to 2,000 people were convicted under this act. Of course, the Red Scare and McCarthyism, the Smith Act of 1940 allowed the prosecution of anyone advocating the overthrow of the government, often applied to members of the Communist Party. The Vietnam era, prior restraint, opposition to the Vietnam War, leaking of the Pentagon Papers. The Nixon administration attempted to stop the New York Times and Washington Post from publishing classified documents. In the modern era, 2000s to the present, the war on terror, digital surveillance, increased use of the Espionage Act to prosecute whistleblowers and journalists. Folks, this is a fight that we have to continue and continue and continue and continue. I just want to focus on one president, and then we can get to the current president. President Barack Obama, he targeted reporters as co-conspirators. The Obama Justice Department explicitly targeted Fox News reporter James Rosen, naming him as an aider, abettor, and co-conspirator in a 2010 criminal case involving a leak from a State Department official. Secretly seized reporters' records, 20 Associated Press office phone lines and reporters' personal phones in 2013. He subpoenaed journalists for sources. Prosecuted whistleblowers. And this, of course, has a chilling effect, on the freedom of the press, because people become afraid that they're going to be prosecuted. Obama, of course, defended his actions, as I'm sure they all do. And now we have the Trump department. There's an article yesterday from Newsmax where the DOJ is warning the media on classified info leaks. Media members with information about people leaking classified information should not be surprised if they receive a subpoena, says Attorney General Todd Blanche. The article goes on and on. The basis of it is they're threatening newspapers that if you report stuff leakers tells you, you can expect trouble from the government. As I said, look, people have died for this issue. Human beings have been fighting for this issue going back thousands of years, for the right to speak, for the right to have freedom of conscience. That doesn't mean that everything everybody says is going to be good, or everybody's going to be honest, or everybody's going to have a well-sourced, opinion. But freedom of speech is vital. We cannot give it up. And too many people, I think, are willing to when it comes to the speech of others. Now, I'm as big a critic of the press as you're going to find. What's the word I'm looking for? So there was this report coming out over, yesterday that the CIA raided Tulsi Gabbard's office. This was all over the place. The second I saw it, I thought, this has got to be bullshit. Right. And it didn't take long for me to figure out that it was bullshit. I mean, I just did a few searches and then she denied it, said, no, it's not true. Not before this was posted all over the place. So one guy, a guy that I like, but he's a Trump voter, when somebody posted this, the guy said, this just goes to show you that truth is hard to come by. He says, we really need to be diligent in our search. This means fact-checking even news organizations like Fox and Newsmax. And I'm thinking to myself, what? Like, you're just coming to the conclusion today that you need to double-check Fox and Newsmax? And this is somebody that frequently argues with me on social media. And it just tells me, like, you've got to do better, folks. There's so many sources of information out there. I use all the AIs, and plus you can just go, give me stories on this subject. There's fact checkers. I mean, you don't have to rely on one. There's an abundance of sources out there. And if there's conflicting sources, then maybe suspend judgment, right? But none of that should be used as the excuse to suppress free speech. Because, and here's the thing, a lot of the founders talked about it. I've talked about it. Not that I'm one of the founders or even like them. I'm just saying it should be common sense that the Bill of Rights, as great as it is, all words on paper mean nothing if the citizenry is not going to fight for these rights and not going to fight for these freedoms. We, the people, have to care about these issues. So, Persephone, I'm curious. You come from a country where I'm guessing free speech has not been a priority of the government for quite some time. That's my guess. I could be wrong. If I am, feel free to tell me. So you read all the stuff I sent you today. What's your thoughts on all this stuff?
my initial thought was it's really funny for a country. I say funny. It's really interesting for a country like America, given the way your country was created, for there to be any kind of limit on criticizing the government. Because that sort of directly goes against, even from an outside perspective, that just seems like it directly contradicts why America was created or why America was founded. So that was the first thing. I don't know. You said about the guy, are you only just now coming to the conclusion that you have to fact check the news? Yes, a lot of people don't know that they have to fact check the news because they genuinely believe that the news is always accurate, which it's not. But even if it is accurate, news, depending on the platform, will often have a spin. So even if they are reporting on facts, even the way that they report on the facts, the way that they talk about things has like a spin to it. So even if it's a fact that is true, you owe it to yourself to go and double check and read from different sources so that you get the full picture. But a lot of people don't do that because there is still an idea that the news and these media platforms are only going to be reporting on things that are true and unbiased. Where that idea comes from, I don't know.
Well, thank you, Robert, for the $2, and it's okay to distract Persephone. She should know better, and she should stay focused. That's all there is to it.
Well, look, I managed to listen to you and respond to Robert at the same time.
You did, yeah. So I don't know how, like, what's the word I'm looking for here? How adamant we need to be when we're talking about free speech. I mean, there's people who have argued that Trump is the free speech president or he's ushering a new era of free speech. That's not true. It's just not true, right? And we either, you either care about it or you don't. You can't just care about it when the other guy does it, when the other guy suppresses it. I have a canker sore. It's killing me over here, just so everybody knows. Every time I talk, it's hitting my teeth and it's bothering me. But anyway.
Do you have gentian violet?
Do I have what?
Gentian violet.
I have Ambisol, but it's down in the basement. I don't have it with me right here. I could go get it, but that'd be a whole thing. Let's just keep going with this. So the point is we just need to keep fighting for free speech. It's annoying to me, to be honest, that the same fights need to be have over and over and over and over again. So there was a commie yesterday. Do you remember Noah the commie?
Unfortunately.
So Noah at one time had Mark and me on his show, and he had his buddy on. His buddy kept interrupting. Noah then agreed to come on my show to debate me, just the two of us. He gave the first time it was something, he had a meeting, and I said, okay, I'll happily rescheduled again, and then at the last minute he said, oh, I have to work. So I said, okay, dude, I'm done with this. Like, obviously you're not serious. So then another time he said, okay, I'm ready. I said, okay, I'll send you the link. And instead of joining the link, he sets up his own space where he can control the mic. And I've seen what happens when they control the mic because, Haz Aldine just mutes Mark, won't let Mark talk. So yesterday, I happened to see a couple things. One where Noah was talking about how Rock Chartrand is afraid to debate him. And then saying, anybody who thinks I'm wrong, try me. So I said, I'll debate you whenever you want. Whenever you want, let's do it.
But he won't.
So hold on. So he says, I can do it right now. Now, this was at 4 o'clock, so I had the show's interview scheduled with Jim. I said, well, can you do it in an hour? He said, no, only right now. So I said, okay, I sent you the link. I told Jim, listen, Jim, give me 45 minutes. So I sent Noah the link. I said, okay, I just sent you the link. He responds, oh, yeah, we're not playing that game where you send me the link. I'll set up the space. I said, all right, dude, I called your bluff. That's it. You know what I mean? I don't need to keep going with this. My point in this is that there's still a relatively large audience for socialism and communism.
Big one, unfortunately.
theoretically demolished as far back as 1890 with Eugen von Barwerk. 1922, Mises demonstrated its utterly impossibility of producing economic results. Ayn Rand destroyed it morally. We have an abundance of history now that shows what happens, but yet it keeps making a comeback. And to have to keep fighting the same battles over and over again, it's annoying. But annoying or not, it is a must.
It is a must, and the reason communism and socialism are always going to be really hard to fight is because people are going to lie, and there is an aspect of it that allows people to feel good about themselves without having to put in any effort, right? Oh, well, we should just provide housing and healthcare and food for everyone in the world. You know, I'm such a good person that I think everyone should have healthcare and housing and food. And if you never think more deeply about what that actually means, then you can feel like a hero because you're saying, well, I support these things, but you're not thinking about what it means in practical terms. And with free speech, people want free speech for themselves and their own ideas. But when it comes to ideas that they don't like, then they want those to be censored. But they don't understand that free speech either is for everyone or it's for no one. So if you are okay with censoring any ideas, then you have to be prepared for your ideas to be censored. But people do have this weird idea that the things that they do can't turn around and be used against them. Like, forget the Constitution now, but when we want the Constitution to matter, then it matters. You don't deserve free speech, but I do. I can censor you, but if you censor me, then there's a problem.
Yes, indeed. And, you know, I had to take a ride this morning, about a 20-minute ride there and back to a town hall. And as I was riding, I put on Brian Kilmeade, and it come to find out that the president now either signed into law or gave an executive order something about fitness standards for schools, a national fitness programs for schools. It's not the government's goddamn business to be involved in whether kids are physically fit or not. That's for parents, not the government. All right, so I want to get to the title that we have. Okay, so I want to answer Rock's question. How do you debate someone you can't even agree on basic terms and definitions with? It's almost impossible. And that's what the communists count on, right? So what I would have had Noah, because Noah said that every argument against communism is a lie. So what I would have done if he came on the show, I would have said, okay, you tell me. Let's not rely on my understanding. I would have said, you tell me exactly what communism is. And I'm very, very confident that whatever he said it is, I could have shown him it was bad. Not shown him, but shown an honest audience. You're never going to get through to someone like him. He's a dishonest douche, right? But there's an audience that you may. Maybe you'll get through to one, maybe you'll get through to two, but perhaps you can. But anyway, Rock, you want to know what a liar he is. In the text with me, in the thread, Noah says, I never said anybody was afraid to debate me, so I provided screenshots. Like, dude, what are you talking? Like, how do you lie? The internet, as they say,
because
it's forever.
People won't go and check, and that's what they rely on. They rely on people not going and checking.
Well,
and then turning around and saying, oh, well, you photoshopped that.
So there's an article, Fox News, and it's based on this interview that Fetterman did with Reason Magazine and I guess others. John Fetterman, the Democratic senator from Pennsylvania, has called out several rising Democratic stars on Wednesday as outright socialist or communist in the party's efforts to cater to the fringe base. Yeah, that's true. He says, I think the extremism is driving it without a doubt. Yeah, that's true, too. He talks about the mayor in Seattle. That's Katie Wilson. He talks about Zoran Mandami, and he talks about Florida flourishing. And then Fetterman refers to himself evidently as a pro-capitalist Democrat. All right. Is Fetterman a pro-capitalist Democrat? I'm just going to go to the AI stuff because it's sequenced a lot easier, but we've also included Fetterman's own website, so you can go read the policies there. They match. It's the same thing. Here are John Fetterman's proposals. Make more shit in America. Focuses on boosting U.S. manufacturing and supply chains to reduce reliance on foreign goods, specifically targeting job growth in Pennsylvania. Tariffs, protectionism. That's what he's talking about. Okay, he's going to lower costs and fight inflation. He's going to reduce out-of-pocket healthcare costs, targeting corporate greed. He supports capping prescription drug prices and allowing imports of cheaper medication. Worker-focused tax policy, advocates for cutting taxes for working-class individuals while proposing a financial transaction tax on Wall Street and high earners. He supports using American energy, investing in clean energy, and providing relief at the pump, including pausing the federal gas tax. Great. Pause that tax. That's good. He supports stricter enforcement against companies that raise prices to pass on tariff costs. So we're going to have some little price controls thrown in. He wants to require federal contracts to include American-made goods. He supports increasing the supply of starter homes through regulatory reform. He has, wants to do some stuff with SNAP, the, food stamps, price gouging prevention, stock trading ban, labor support, all stuff that is clearly not capitalist. But he says, I'm a capitalist. And Fox News reports it. And I'm sure there's Republicans out there that are eating it up. He's not a capitalist. So don't take my word for it. So I took his website that he has and I put it to Grok. And I said, Grok, are Fetterman's policies, can they be described as capitalist? From Grok, the wisdom of all wisdom, of course, I don't really mean that. My point is only that it's not a biased source. It's not me out here, that's just telling you what I think. I can tell you he's not a capitalist because, of course, he's not. He's not for free enterprise. He's for the violation of individual rights. He believes in nonsense like we have to do something about greed. We need to stop these greedy capitalists from raising prices and tariffs and whatever. So Grok says, and Ian, you're going to like this, no, this is not a pro-capitalist list of proposals. It is a populist, interventionist, and economically nationalist platform that relies heavily on government mandates, price controls, targeted taxation, and punishment of private enterprise. While it includes some limited tax relief and anti-corruption elements, the core philosophy clashes with capitalist principles like free markets. Voluntary exchange, private property rights, low barriers to trade, and minimal government distortion of prices and profits. There's a lot more. You can read it if you do as Persephone suggested. My only point is that this guy is not a capitalist. Not even close. And yet he can say that he is, and there's not much pushback anywhere. Fox News isn't saying he's not. The Reason Magazine article that I read about it didn't say it, but to be fair, I did not listen to the interview that Nick Gillespie did with him. So what are we doing here? I mean, if this guy can be touted as a capitalist and he's criticizing the other Democrats because they're socialists, I mean, where do we go? And then you have people that are on our side who might say he's not, but Trump is, which of course Trump is not either. Where are the capitalists? Where have the capitalists gone, Persephone? Wait, I just want to tell you, Megan Ribbons blames science education for these proposals. If you're taught to start with observation, you'd say, I'm concerned about poverty. If I use my looky eyes, I love when she says that, what in reality improves living standards? And Megan is going to have a chance to talk about some of that stuff coming up on the Saturday edition of this program. Okay, go ahead,
Yes.
Steffi.
So what I find really interesting is this is another case of it sounds to a person who doesn't think too deeply about things, right? To a person who goes entirely based on feelings, some of these things could come off as sounding really good. You know, hedge funds bad. We're gonna punish the nasty hedge funds, but you know, we're gonna look after the workers, and we're gonna cap the prescription costs, and you know, bring down the cost of healthcare. And all of those, to a person who doesn't think too deeply, sounds, you know, very nice. You're looking after the people. Very good. If you spend even 5 minutes thinking about what those things mean in practicality and what the effects of those things were going to be, you can see that they're not good ideas. But if you don't think about it too deeply and you just go based on feelings, then you go, oh, it sounds good, great. And as to why, you know, no one argues that he's not a capitalist, most people don't know what capitalism is. There's a huge misunderstanding of what capitalism actually is, and it's why people can get away with blaming all of the world's problems on capitalism and calling Trump a capitalist and calling him a capitalist and saying everything wrong with the world, everybody that I don't like is a nasty, nasty capitalist.
Nasty,
That's why.
nasty. Oh, look at this. $5 from Rock Chartrand. He says, what label best describes Trump? Crony capitalist, tyrant lover, whim worshiper, nationalist? I would say pragmatist. And not in it's hard to say because it's worse than pragmatism because I would say it's a combination of narcissistic personality disorder with pragmatism.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say narcissistic idiot.
Yeah, but it's whatever he thinks is going to work for him in the moment. It's range of the moment pragmatism that is exacerbated in a very bad way by his narcissistic tendencies. That's how I would describe him. I think his rhetoric is very populist, but that really doesn't mean anything. It's an appeal. He's a demagogue, an old-fashioned demagogue.
So
What say you, Persephone?
I say narcissistic idiot. I don't think anything more needs to be said. I think narcissistic idiot covers it pretty well. But Greg says the government monopoly on education is a powerful propaganda machine that needs to be dismantled, which is very true. But the other problem is that because people can just say whatever they want, which is a good thing, because people can put their opinions out
I'm
there.
sorry. Let me apologize to Rock. I misread it. He doesn't say crony capitalist. He just says crony. I apologize, Rock. I
says-
saw crony C and I assumed capitalist, but it was corporatist was the next one.
I still stick with my answer. So the problem is that because you are allowed to put anything you want on the internet, and you can share whatever you want, and you can portray yourself as an authority, people can spread misinformation very easily. So, yeah, the government is a problem, but the other problem is that there are a lot of people spreading misinformation and not as many people spreading the correct information.
You know what we need to do, and we're going to do it. Maybe Jim Valiant will do it with me. I'm sure he will because Jim is very amenable. But we're going to do a special episode called "What is Capitalism?" And if we have to do 3 hours, we'll do 3 hours. We're going to break it down, and we're going to really get into what capitalism is. How's that sound, Persephone?
It sounds so similar to a suggestion that I made like about 4 or 5 months ago.
Persephone, it's not, nobody likes I told you so's or it was my idea. We have enough of that with me. We don't need you doing it as well.
I think that it's a wonderful idea. I, in fact, think that you shouldn't stick to just one episode. I do think that the Saturday special episodes are great with like more of the deep dive into philosophical topics, but I think that what would be great is having a regular series covering super basic concepts about capitalism without.
Well, it'll be structured. Okay, so what we don't want is somebody micromanaging us from the beginning. We don't need that. I'm just going to put that out there for Persephone because she seems to, she wants to control everything. If somebody doesn't know, like if they don't watch regularly and they only turn on for like that, they're going to be like, oh my God, who's this misogynist fuck? Look how bad he mistreats this poor woman.
That's true. That's true. I am mistreated. Terrible.
Yeah, what I would have in mind for such an episode, honestly, is I would like to build up from basic concepts up through some more technical stuff, discuss the economic arguments, the individual rights arguments, the history. We would get into an awful lot. I don't think Jim is in the audience anymore because if he were, I think he would have already answered. He would have been jumping up and down saying, pick me, pick me, pick me.
I think that it's an amazing idea. I think that you should definitely do the big special episode, but I think that you should also do an additional series, and it doesn't even have to be live. It can be just short recorded videos. Everybody vote in the chat if you think that's a good idea.
Well, we could do one episode and have you edit it and break it down into components.
Fine.
Or we can do a series. I mean, look, we just started talking about this now and you're already breaking my balls about it.
That's literally my job.
That's true. Let me give Jim a old text and see if he is interested in this. Go ahead and talk about something.
Megan. What would you like me to talk about?
Whatever you like.
Do you still want to continue talking about Fetterman? Or do you want to move on to the free-range parenting thing? Because that was interesting.
Say what you want about Fetterman.
The policies are stupid. I highly encourage everyone to go and read them and then look at what they say the benefits are going to be, and then spend a little bit of time thinking about what the real world implications of those things are going to be. Bringing jobs back to America and increasing production in the country, it sounds, if you don't think about it, it sounds great. But then if you think about what the impact is going to be, not on big corporations, but on small businesses and on the people, like entrepreneurs, if you think about what the impact is going to be on those people, then you swiftly realize that bring production back to America is a bad idea. Even with I'm sorry, it's stupid. If you spend any time thinking about it, you can see just how many small businesses were hugely impacted by the tariffs, which was supposed to be a good thing for America. But how many small American businesses went out of business and had their businesses completely ruined because they could no longer afford to either import the things that they needed to import because they were importing from China, and with the increase in tariffs, they had to raise their prices so much that they couldn't run those businesses anymore. And that's exactly what this is going to do. It sounds good if you don't think about it at all. It's just like it's a bumper sticker. But the real world implications of it would be dangerous and stupid, and it wouldn't hurt the people that they're clearly trying to hurt. They're clearly trying to hurt the large corporations, but it wouldn't hurt them because they've got enough money to do whatever they need to do. It's going to hurt the small businesses. It's going to hurt the average person. So you're creating these policies to help average Americans, but what you're doing is you're fucking them over.
Well, that's it. That should be Fetterman's campaign slogan. Fetterman for the Senate. I want to fuck you over.
I mean, that's what all of those policies will do.
This is
to
what
the
I don't
average
like.
American.
Let me tell you, this is something that is a real pet peeve for me. if you want to be if you want to be for this stuff, then be for it. But don't claim that you're a capitalist. It's like if you want to be a Trump supporter, be a Trump supporter. Don't claim you're a conservative. Don't claim you're a constitutionalist, because you're not. Just be what you are. It's like if you have viewpoints that stray from, if you're an objectivist and you have viewpoints that stray from objectivism, that's fine. I do. But just acknowledge it. Don't then pretend that your views are part of some other thing, whether it be libertarian, liberal, whatever.
People need their labels and they need their tribes. Even the people who claim to be for the individual, they cling to the labels and they cling to the tribal identity. It's really difficult for people to step away from labels, even if they think they are, they still cling to them.
Go ahead.
So, like, you say your pet peeve is, don't call him a capitalist. My pet peeve is that I think that more people should understand that just because you hear words that sound nice doesn't mean that they are nice. I need people to learn to think critically about the information that they're hearing. You cannot just hear a bumper sticker and go, well, that would be lovely. If you cannot think critically about what the fucking implications are of the things that sound good, then you're doomed. If you hear something that sounds good, think critically about what the implications are. Think about what it's going to mean, not just in the short term, but in the long term. Learn to think past the edge of your nose. Whatever her name is, the mayor that said, well, if the millionaires leave, we'll then buy. That's a bumper sticker. You're saying that because you don't understand what the implications of that will be. So that's my pet peeve. Learn to think critically about things.
I just right now felt my energy drink like wearing off. So anyways, yesterday we did an episode, or was it yesterday? Maybe it was the day before. I think it was the day before, where we talked about play and recess and free range parenting. They're advertising here from Twitch. Anyways, a new bipartisan bill seeks to protect free-range parenting and redefine neglect. Lawmakers cite examples of parents who were investigated for letting their kids play outside and walk to the store, among other ordinary childhood activities. I think we should just give some of these examples. Are there examples in here? Let me find it.
Well, I mean, there was the person who let their kids jump on their bikes outside, and then the neighbor threatened to call CPS. There were the two kids that were picked up, like, walking back from the store, and they were spotted by authorities, and their parents were threatened to have their children removed.
Yeah, that's sick,
which is
right?
fucking terrifying if you think about it. And again, this is one of those things where it sounds good if you don't think critically. We want to protect the children. But
So,
what it
let me
means
take
in
a-
practical terms is that parents have no control over the lives that their children lead.
So listen to this. We got Rafi Mativ, or Maitiv. In 2015, he was 10 years old, and he and his sister walked home from the park in Maryland. Someone saw them unsupervised and called the authorities. Child Protective Services that night went to their home and threatened multiple times to take these kids away. They forced his dad to sign something and said, if you don't sign this, that says you will comply with all our demands, at least temporarily, we're going to take away your kids. That is insane.
It's it's really fucked up. Especially like because they say that the goal of these laws is to prevent kidnapping and all these things. And sure, it sounds good, but
So
kid
go
you
ahead. I'm
you
sorry.
can't there's so much government interference in how you raise your children. Like, yes, in America, but like all over the world. In New Zealand, I think, the government mandates what needs to be in your child's lunchbox. If the lunch that you pack for your child isn't healthy enough, then they will fine you. So they dictate what your child can eat, what your child can do, and all sorts of things. And the things that are supposed to be protecting children are a lot of times like doing the exact opposite, because for the kid who has a very good home life and then gets threatened, like, oh, we're going to take you away from your father because he's a monster, when all he did was let the kids have like an ounce of independence. That's not protecting anybody. That's traumatic for a 10-year-old.
Very.
And there's no reason for it, because like the world is dangerous, sure, but I mean it's always been kind of dangerous, and all of the kids who grew up not permanently attached to their parents, they're all fine. I wandered the streets until the middle
I don't
of the
know if they're
night.
all fine.
Well, no, obviously not, but I mean the kids that have helicopter parents, some of them are not fine either, so yeah. Nicole Hingle says all the parents in the 70s would have been arrested. My parents would be in jail. My parents like hardly ever knew where I was, but they knew that if I needed them, that I would call them.
So they did this. There's this book, How to Live Dangerously, and they crunched the numbers, and it says that for a child to be statistically likely to be kidnapped by a stranger, you'd have to leave them outside unattended for 750,000 years. Now, I don't know, about those numbers, but I do know. I personally don't know anybody that's ever been kidnapped. Any kid that's ever been kidnapped, I don't know any. I've seen it on the news. I know it happens, but I don't know any that it's happened to. And I mean, life entails risk, right? Like you drive your car. Anytime you go out driving, you could end up dead. I mean, there's all types of risks out there. We simply cannot obviate or protect for every risk there is. Parents, I think, I'm not suggesting that you tell your kid, hey, go on a 3-hour hike someplace, just keep walking that way and see what happens. But I think parents need to be the ones to decide this stuff, because the alternative is the government. And let me just tell you, from dealing with the government that I dealt with this morning, because, for my job, in the 25 years I spent living in a government institution, these are not the folks we want making these types of decisions. No? I mean, what? That's it? I get nothing?
No, so I'm just busy googling something so that I don't say something stupid.
What, pray tell, are you Googling?
I'm not going to tell you. Okay, I was right. So, the parents who keep their kid away from all germs and dirt, right?
Yeah,
Because they think that that's the healthy thing to do, to make sure that their child is always clean and not exposed to any germs. So, over sanitization of a child's environment actually hinders immune system development. So it's dangerous for kids to be so overly protected from germs. That's physically their health. And the same is true for like mental development as well, because if you mollycoddle your children and you never let them gain independence, when they reach an age where they can get independence on their own, they're not going to be as well prepared, because they haven't had any experience. And that's so much more dangerous than letting your 10-year-old kid walk to the shop by themselves. So
Very, very true.
it again, it's one of those things that sounds good. Keep the children safe, but think about what the fucking consequences are. Again, like making sure that children eat healthy, encouraging healthy eating in children. That sounds like a great goal, but when what ends up happening is that the government mandates what has to be in your child's lunchbox, and the people who can't do that, they get penalized. They might be otherwise good parents, but now the government thinks that they're not giving their child the correct food. Now you're fucked. There was a woman, and this drives me insane. There was a woman, and I think it was during after Hurricane Katrina, and she couldn't get formula for her child. And she ended up giving her like normal milk, which as a mother who can't get formula for their kid, you want to get some sustenance into the child. And she's in jail.
Well, that's sick.
It's disgusting. And again, like it sounds so noble. We want to keep the kids safe, but you're not keeping the kids safe. Because kidnappings still happen. Children are still abused. Children still aren't eating healthy. Like,
So I want to tell you something, okay? So 24 years ago or so, I started getting tension headaches. Bad. And the tension headaches, all of a sudden I'd get like this feeling, almost like my knuckles cracking. It felt like, but back here, and I would hear that, and that would alleviate the tension. Then the tension would build up again, and the same thing would happen. I spent so much time going to doctors in prison about this and explaining to them what was happening to me, and they all thought I was crazy. One guy, I think you're just hearing things. The human mind does that. You're hearing things. It took me the other night 2 minutes. I Googled this, right? And said, what could this be? And it said, it's a very common phenomenon which you're experiencing. And they had a word for it that I don't remember. But the bottom line is, it says what's happening is you're experiencing the same dynamic as when you crack your knuckles. When you crack your knuckles, what it is gas bubbles breaking. So what's happening is when the tension in your head is breaking up, it's causing these bubbles to do something. And then what you're hearing is they're cracking, and that's why the tension is being alleviated. Now, this is a 2-minute Google search that can't tell you how much time I spent writing requests to doctors, explaining to them what was going on, and none of them could solve it. That's government. We do not want the government involved in anything more than what they absolutely need to be involved in. You know what I was just thinking about? I want you to tell the audience what you told me, Persephone. Persephone told me that when I stare at the camera, I'm like evil. Like she said, I'm like a Michael Myers type character.
That's
or
not
something.
what I said. So what I said, an audience, back me up.
It
here.
amounted to that, though. You said I look like a sicko.
No, I didn't say that. So what I said was that occasionally Michael will lean back in his chair like this, and then he'll sort of like glare at the camera, and it's just because his face is relaxed. But what I said is that it looks like he wants to reach through the screen and slap me. But it's when he does this and he drops his head and he glares. I'm
listening attentively. If I listen attentively,
glaring.
It's evil. It's not glaring. That's rude.
I didn't say evil. I said what I actually.
If
said
you
was,
are saying somebody has a look on their face that's
like they want to punch you,
yeah, you're saying you look evil. That's sick.
I said you need to school your face.
That's so mean.
It's not. You're a very handsome man, but I said you kind of look intimidating.
Malevolent? Jenna says I look malevolent.
You can be kind of intimidating.
I'm a cream puff.
But,
okay, look.
You're a lovely guy, but occasionally you look very scary.
Akira Felix says she thought you liked bad boys. Okay,
he also says you look badass, which means that he agrees with me. Thank you, Akira.
Maybe Akira has a thing for me. You don't know.
Well, I'm just saying, and I think everyone agrees with me. They're just too scared to say it because you look too scary.
All right. I got to find out what was going on with this question from yesterday. I don't even remember what it was.
Mark asked, "What is the strangest,
okay.
the weirdest food that you've ever eaten?"
This one's going to go over big.
Yeah, Jenna Kleem's answer, 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Let me go with the anemic answer from Akira Felix first. Akira says that the weirdest thing he's ever eaten is a pizza made with ketchup instead of tomato sauce. Yeah, I'm not impressed with that, Akira, I got to tell you. Jenna Kleem, and she wants to make sure everybody understands this is 70 years ago. She ate puppy soup as a part of a healing ceremony. Puppy soup. She does say it was a different time, different culture. Stay mindful, be kind. This was on Pine Ridge Reservation. Jenna, I'm very interested. If 70 years ago, if you ever knew Leonard Peltier or Russell Means or any of the fellas from over there, Jenna, very, very, very curious. Okay, do I got to give the capitalist thought of the day?
But before you do that, what's the strangest food you've ever eaten?
Jenna knew those guys? That's freaking amazing. I've never eaten anything really strange. Nothing that's... turkey a la king in prison. That's about as strange as it gets. But for me, that might be worse than the puppy soup. I don't know. But no, I've never had anything bizarre to eat. I'm sorry.
So boring.
Well, I won't go there. I'm not going to go where I was going to go. I'm going to leave that be.
I've eaten crocodile before.
All right. I'm going to do the capitalist thought of the day.
Yes.
I'm always doing this.
Yeah. It's because you can pawn it off on everybody else. So
everybody else, I'm the only one here. What do you mean?
Well, when James is here, you can give it to him. When Mark is here,
they're
you can
hardly
give it
ever
to him.
here.
Don't make your problems mine.
I'm not. I'm doing it. I'm going to do it. Okay, so capitalist thought of the day. Capitalist thought of the day is this, folks. We need to know what capitalism actually is if we're going to be advocating for it. We talked today about John Fetterman, and he's saying that he's a capitalist. He is not. To be a capitalist, to advocate for capitalism means to advocate for its foundation, which is individual rights and individual liberty. Without these things, capitalism is nothing. So we need to know what individual rights are. We need to know what individual freedom means, and we need to know their relationship to the overall political system for which we are advocating. And that's what we need to advocate. Capitalism is a great system. It is a release of the human energy and human potential that has created the highest standard of living the world has ever known. That only happens when we are free, and we need to keep advocating for freedom, all freedoms, including and not secondarily, the freedom of speech and the freedom of the press. It's been a long time that we've had to fight for these things, and if we want to keep them, we must keep fighting for them. The price of liberty, as the great Jefferson said, is eternal vigilance. Okay, can you, Persephone, ask today's question?
Okay. I don't have a good question. Where would you like to go? Where would you like to travel to in the world on vacation? If you went on holiday, where would you like to travel to? That's a question.
Okay, that's the question. We will see you back here tomorrow. Mark Pellegrino has said he might be here tomorrow. Hopefully he will. But if not, Persephone is perfectly equipped and capable to stand in for him. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for the super chats and super stickers. We will see you tomorrow. Remember, today, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we have Everyday Ethics. 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time, we have Crime, Corrections, and Culture. And until then, or until tomorrow, or for as long as you live, remember to always check your premises. Peace.